Hello, Spencerport community. My name is Rick Wood, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Business. On behalf of our Interim Superintendent, Dr. Pam Kissel, we'd like to thank you for taking time to listen to the 2021-2022 proposed budget presentation. Topics we'll be reviewing include the goals used to build the budget, sharing the proposed budget and revenue amounts, looking at enrollment, presenting tax information such as the estimated levy, assessments, tax rates, and what a tax bill may look like. We'll also highlight some of the great accomplishments during the year, review what the community will be voting on, and discuss what happens if the budget fails. Since 2003, our school district has been committed to reaching the objectives and vision of our strategic plan using strategies that embrace partnerships and student learning. This year is no different than the past 18 years, and we will continue to guide our work towards inspiring each student to love learning and pursue excellence. The Board of Education and Administration focus on three main goals during budget development. The first is to maintain or enhance the excellent programs and opportunities our students have in Spencerport. Examples include our work on digital conversion, both instructionally and administratively, as we navigate the challenges of remote and hybrid learning, as well as programs that embrace social and emotional learning and culturally responsive instruction. The second, while the resources required for running an organization of this size continue to grow, we must maintain a balance and plan for keeping our tax levy and tax rate at a reasonable level. And finally, we continue to analyze the long-term financial planning and sustained use of our reserve funds. Factors impacting the development of the 21-22 budget include COVID-19, what some may say is an unprecedented increase in state aid and federal stimulus funding, the potential of implementing or enriching a universal pre-K program, and the overall economy due primarily to COVID-19. Many community members and staff ask about not only the instructional impact due to the pandemic, but also the financial impact. During the last quarter of the 1920 school year, many districts saw savings in expense areas such as professional development, instruction for general and special education, community education, clubs and activities, athletics, and transportation. However, we also saw certain increases in other areas such as facilities and the health services budget to address the health and safety needs caused by the pandemic. What many don't realize was the impact on the estimated revenues. For example, the state withheld 20% of certain state aid categories, in addition to smaller local revenue sources such as community education, athletic admissions, investments, and rental income. Those same trends followed in the current 2021 school year. We continue to see savings in similar expense areas such as community education, athletics, and transportation, yet also have increases in the facilities and health service budgets. More importantly, there continues to be a decrease in revenue, such as athletic admissions, investments, and expenditure-driven aid. The proposed budget is a 3.43% increase in our spending plan, or a little under $2.9 million. Education is a people business, so it's no surprise that salaries and benefits is a large part of the budget, in our case about 72%. Other expense areas that saw a large dollar or percent increase include BOCES services, which saw an increase of 6.87% due to the enrollment growth in students with disabilities budget, and our debt service, which increased 11.21% as we structure permanent financing for our 2018 capital project. Districts across New York State are required to provide a three-part budget. As you can see, this pie chart breaks down our spending plan into three categories. The program component, comprising of all the instructional categories, is the largest and makes up 73.1% of the budget. The capital component, comprising of all the facilities budgets, is about 17%. And finally, the administrative component is just under 10%. In other words, administrative costs are less than 10 cents to the dollar. While budgets can be greatly impacted by enrollment, our enrollment history and cohort projections reflect little year-to-year change. The chart on the left reflects 7 years of actual enrollment, whereas the chart on the right reflects estimated enrollment for the next 3 years, broken down by different grade levels. This information is helpful as enrollment drives much of our staffing. To fund the spending plan, this graphic shows the breakdown of different revenue sources. 91% of our funding is dependent upon New York State aid and what we ask for from our community in the form of a tax levy. Local sources make up 7%, reserve funds about 1.6%, and the balance from federal aid. The State legislature approved a state budget on April 8th and made the decision to begin a phased-in approach of fully funding what is called foundation aid. For Spencerport, that equated to about $1.6 million. Also included in the state budget was an opportunity for districts to begin funding a universal pre-kindergarten program. Pre-K funding is accounted for outside the general fund operating budget, and details about how to apply for this funding are pending. The maximum tax levy, or the amount needed to collect from the community, is derived from the property tax calculation. This equated to a possible increase of about $1 million, or 2.56%. Even with the increase in state aid and maximizing the allowable levy limit, the district is still allocating about $1.4 million, or 1.6% of reserve funds. To understand more about federal stimulus funding, let's look at the next slide. The first stimulus package was the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or CARES Act, approved in March of 2020. Spencerport received $611,000, and this is included in the current year aid package and has no impact in future budgets. The second stimulus package was the Coronavirus Response and Relief Appropriations, or CRRSA Act, approved in December of 2020. Spencerport's allocation is about $3.4 million to be used over a 3-year period. This funding is not part of the general fund operating budget and is accounted for in a special aid fund. The third stimulus package is the American Rescue Plan, or ARP Act, approved in March of 2021. Spencerport's allocation is about $4.9 million. Similar to the CRRSA Act funding, this is to be used over a 3-year period, is not part of the general fund operating budget, and is accounted for in a special aid fund. There are certain stipulations of how these funds are to be used, and we are awaiting further guidance from the New York State Department of Education. Most homeowners want to know how this impacts their taxes. The formula for determining the tax rate is to take the levy and divide it by the assessed value of all taxable properties in the district. The estimated levy is $40,233,431. Based on conversations with each town assessor, the estimated assessment is projected to be $1.6 billion, an increase of just under 1.2%. Unfortunately, each town is not fully valued or assessed equally, so the New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services assigns what is called an equalization rate for each town. An equalization rate of 100% means the selling price equals the assessed value of the home. An equalization rate of less than 100%, as in the case of Ogden and Parma, reflects houses are selling at more than the assessed value. When factoring this information, the full market value is about $1.7 billion. Comparing last year's full value tax rate to the projected full value tax rate reflects a decrease of 1.99%. We highly recommend you visit our website and watch the short clip entitled Understanding Equalization Rates to gain a better insight into what can be a very confusing topic. Unfortunately, that isn't what's happening for each town. This slide shows what the tax bill may be for each town based on a $100,000 home or on an average home valued at $180,000. Due to the equalization rates, Ogden and Parma amounts will increase, whereas Gates and Greece will decrease. We're proud of all that Spencerport has to offer and want to acknowledge just a few of the accomplishments this district has achieved even during the pandemic. A few examples include our nationally recognized music program, this year being able to perform in videos on YouTube, the incredible growth and value of our robotics program, which took 3rd in the world this year, our performing arts and various other clubs and opportunities for students, our athletes being able to return to sports. We're sectional winners in girls soccer, wrestling, and the first ever sectional championship for girls bowling. Our 3rd year running being identified as a top workplace in Rochester. Middle school, again, being selected as a National Schools to Watch school. And individual teachers and administrators who've received multiple awards for their efforts. Shown here is Golden Apple honoree Jackie Nentars, a PE and teacher leader at the high school. Before we share what the community will be voting on, let's look at the results of prior year budget votes. Other than last year, when districts were required to mail all eligible voters an absentee ballot, the total number of voters was a very small percentage of our community. While we have had excellent passing rates for our budgets, we want to encourage the community to exercise their right to vote. There will be 2 propositions on the ballot this year. The first is the approval of the 21-22 spending plan of $87,434,885. The second is the authorization to expend up to $131,500 from the 2017 Bus and Motor Vehicle Reserve for the purchase of a lift truck. Also on the ballot is the election of 2 open board seats. Mr. Hutton and Mr. Maselli's terms end June 30th, 2021. We have 5 candidates vying for 2 seats. More information about each candidate can be found in the upcoming edition of the Cornerstone. We'd be remiss if we didn't publicly thank Mr. Maselli for his years of service to the Spencerport community, and we wish him all the best. In the event the budget doesn't pass, the Board of Education can elect to adopt a contingent budget or ask the community to vote again in June. If the budget is defeated twice, a district must adopt a contingent budget. A contingent budget consists of certain salaries and ordinary contingent expenses, which are services required to 1. Operate and maintain school buildings and the educational program, 2. Preserve the property of the district, and 3. To ensure the health and safety of students and staff. The contingent budget must also be in compliance with what is called an administrative cap, and the tax levy cannot exceed the prior year levy. Again, we'd like to thank you for listening to this presentation about the 21-22 proposed budget. Questions can be sent to the email address listed on the slide. And one final reminder to cast your vote on Tuesday, May 18th. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. at district office. Thank you.